The sky burned red. The city was nothing but dust, fire, and the smell of metal. Once it was the capital of the Valari Empire, now it was a graveyard. The war between humans and Valari had turned every world into ashes. Captain Rian Holt walked through the ruins with his rifle low and his heart heavy. His armor was cracked and his oxygen tank blinked red, almost empty. He had lost his team 2 days ago. No orders, no backup, just silence and smoke. Every step echoed like a warning. Somewhere above, alien drones still circled, searching for survivors. Ryan knew one mistake could bring them down on him. But he kept moving. He wasn't ready to die. Not yet. He turned a corner and stopped. There, buried under fallen stone, he heard something, a soft trembling sound. A cry. He froze. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't a soldier, it was a child. Rian raised his gun and scanned the shadows. "Who's there?" He whispered. No answer. Only the small sound again, and weaker this time. He followed it carefully until he found a half-destroyed shelter. Inside, light flickered through cracks in the roof. And there she was. A small Valari girl, maybe 8 years old, trapped under steel and rubble. Her silver skin was covered with dust, her long black hair tangled. Her breathing was shallow. Her glowing blue eyes looked up, not with hate but with fear. Ryan's chest tightened. The Valari and his enemies who had killed millions of humans. He had seen their weapons burn through planets. But this was just a child. His hand shook. The right thing was to walk away. The war manual said never help the enemy. But his heart said something else. He dropped his gun and started moving the rocks. The girl flinched as he touched the debris. "Don't hurt me," she whispered in broken English. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ryan said softly. "Hold on, I'll get you out." It took all his strength, but he lifted the steel bar, pinning her legs. When she was free, she cried quietly, holding her knee. Rian knelt beside her, checking for wounds. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ailira," she said, voice trembling. "Where's my mother?" Ryan's heart sank. He had heard that name before. Ailira Ven, daughter of General Sarah Ven, the most feared Valari commander, the Queen of War. He looked around. If anyone found out he was helping her, both of them would die. He took a deep breath. "Your mother's looking for you," he lied gently. "We need to get you somewhere safe first." He carried her out of the shelter, wrapped her in his cloak, and moved through the ruins. Every sound and every gust of wind had made him flinch. Drones hummed above, scanning the area. He ducked under broken beams, sliding into tunnels once used for transport. Hours passed. His oxygen tank beeped again. Low warning. Ailira looked up at him. "Why are you helping me?" "You are human." Rian gave a tired smile. "Because you're just a kid. War doesn't care who you are, but I do." She blinked, confused, then slowly rested her head on his shoulder. They reached an old bunker near the city's edge. Ryan sealed the door behind them and activated a small light. The room was silent except for the sound of the wind outside. He laid her down on a blanket and checked his communicator. No signal. He was completely cut off. The human army thought he was dead. Maybe that was good. Maybe that meant he could start over. At least for a while. Ailira stirred. "My mother, she will find me." Ryan stared at the dark wall. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know." Far away on a Valari command ship orbiting the planet, General Sarah Ven stood before a screen filled with static. The AI translation came through. Captain Rian Holt, presumed dead. Last seen near the ruins of Velis Prime. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Her daughter was missing. Her enemy's last signal came from the same place. To her, there was only one answer. She turned to her officers. "Find him," she said coldly, "and bring me his head." Back in the bunker, Ryan sat beside the sleeping Ailira. The distant thunder of engines shook the ground. He didn't know that Sarah Ven, the girl's own mother, had just begun the hunt for him. He looked at the girl's peaceful face and whispered, "I'll keep you safe. No matter what it costs." Outside, the sky rumbled again, not thunder, but war returning. And in that moment, the man who saved an enemy child became the most wanted soldier in the galaxy. The old bunker shook again as thunder rolled through the ground. But it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of war machines moving across the surface, searching, scanning, hunting. Captain Rian Holt sat near the door, his rifle in hand, listening to every echo. The girl, Ailira, slept beside the small heater he had managed to fix. Her breathing was soft, almost peaceful, something rare in a world where peace had died long ago. Ryan hadn't slept for 2 nights. His mind replayed the same question again and again. What have I done? He had saved the daughter of his enemy, the most feared alien general in the galaxy. If his commanders found out, they'd brand him a traitor. If her people found out, they'd tear him apart. But when he looked at Alira, all those thoughts faded. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a monster. She was just a child who had lost everything. The signal, a sharp beep, pulled him from his thoughts. His communicator, and dead for days, flickered weakly. Ryan checked the small screen. One message flashed, broken and half-corrupted. Captain Holt. Report status. Respond immediately. He froze. The signal came from his own fleet. They thought he was alive. Ryan turned it off quickly. If he replied, they'd track him. And if they tracked him, they'd find Alira. But what he didn't know was that someone else had also detected that faint signal. General Sarah Venn. The mother's search fire above the planet. On the Volari flagship Ascendant, Sarah stood before a holographic map. Her eyes were cold fire. That signal, human frequency. Find its source, she ordered. The AI responded, triangulating. Location the northern ruins. Probability of connection to the child, 83%. Sarah's jaw tightened. Then that's where he is. Her officers exchanged nervous glances. Everyone knew what the general was like when her daughter was involved. Back in the bunker, Ryan was teaching Alira how to use a basic survival mask. She watched carefully, her big blue eyes following every move. Press here, he said, showing her how to seal it. If there's gas or dust outside, this will help you breathe. She nodded. Humans wear machines to live. Volari breathed the storms. He chuckled softly. Yeah, well, we're not built like you. For the first time, she smiled. Maybe you were just hiding your strength. Ryan looked at her, surprised. The way she said it, innocent but wise, reminded him of the daughter he once had. Years ago, before the war took her, he turned away, hiding the emotion on his face. The warning hours later, Ryan stepped outside the bunker to check for movement. The air was cold, the sky dark with storm clouds. He climbed up a collapsed tower and used binoculars to scan the horizon. His heart dropped. A formation of ships, sleek, silver, unmistakable, was descending in the distance. Volari ships. He climbed down fast and returned to the bunker. We have to move, he said quickly. Alira blinked, confused. Why, this place is safe. Not anymore. They're coming, she frowned. Maybe it's my mother. She will save us, Ryan paused. He wanted to tell her the truth and that her mother was hunting him, but he couldn't. Not yet. We can't be sure, he said softly. We need to stay hidden until we know. Escape through the shadows. They moved through underground tunnels that stretched beneath the city. Dark, wet, filled with echoes. Ryan carried a small light while Alira followed quietly. Sometimes the sound of machines above made them stop and hold their breath. At one point, Alira whispered, Do you hate my people? Ryan thought for a long moment. I used to, he said honestly. When you lose people in war, hate is easy. But now, he looked at her. Now I'm not sure who the enemy really is. She didn't answer, but her small hand brushed against his. A silent sign of trust. The discovery. They reached an old Volari outpost buried under the earth. Its systems were dead, but Alira's eyes lit up. I can fix this, she said. Ryan watched in surprise as she touched a cracked console. Her skin glowed faintly and the screen flickered back to life. Volari Tech responded to her presence. You just woke up 100-year-old base, Ryan said, half amazed, half afraid. The computers began to hum, lights flickering through the tunnels. Energy flowed again. But the moment that system reactivated, a signal went out. Far in orbit, Sarah's ship received it. Unauthorized power activation detected. Coordinates locked. Sarah smiled coldly. He's there. The final scene. Suspense end. Back underground, Ryan noticed the lights dim for a moment, then return brighter than before. He didn't know what had happened. He turned to Alira. We might have food and power now, he said. But from now on, we stay quiet. No signals, no noise. Promise? She nodded slowly. I promise. But outside, in the sky above them, the shadow of the Volari fleet grew larger. their scanners already focusing on the ground below. Elira slept that night, safe and dreaming. Ryan stayed awake, gun in hand, staring at the ceiling, feeling the ground tremble softly. He didn't know it yet, but the mother had found them, and the hunt was about to begin. The storm had not stopped for 3 days. Lightning tore the sky, and the ground rumbled like an angry beast. The bunker walls shook as Captain Ryan Holt watched the monitors flicker again. Ever since Elira, the alien child he had saved, reactivated the old Valari outpost, strange signals had been bouncing across the air. The base had power now, but also danger. Machines had started whispering again. Systems woke up that were better left dead. Ryan didn't know it yet, but those signals had already reached both armies, the humans and the Valari. And now they were both coming for him. The plan to survive. Ryan studied the screens. The scanner showed nothing close, but he didn't trust it. He turned to Elira, who sat beside a glowing console, legs crossed, watching him curiously. "We can't stay here much longer," he said. "If they find us, we're done." Elira tilted her head. "You said this place was safe." "It was safe," Ryan replied. "Until that machine started sending out signals." She frowned. "I didn't mean to," he sighed. "I know, kid. It's not your fault. But now we have to be smart." He opened a metal case and pulled out a small communication beacon, the only device left that could reach the human fleet. Its light blinked faintly, showing it still had power. "If I use this," Ryan thought aloud, "maybe I can send a coded message, something that says we're not a threat. Maybe they'll extract us before the Valari arrive." Elira's voice was quiet. "Or maybe they will come to kill you." Her words hit him like a bullet. She was right. His own army now saw him as a deserter, maybe even a traitor. He stared at the beacon, unsure. "Then maybe I'll send a message for you," he said finally. "To your people. Maybe your mother will come." Elira looked down, her eyes glowing softly. "My mother does not forgive," she whispered. "She only hunts." In the shadows above, far above the storm, inside the Valari warship Ascendant, General Sarah Venn stood before her command table. The signal was on her screen now, a repeating pulse coming from the planet's surface. "It's him," she said coldly. "Ryan Holt," her second officer asked carefully. "General, should we verify first?" She turned her sharp eyes toward him. "He took my daughter. He dies tonight, but something deep inside her, something she refused to admit, made her hesitate. What if her daughter was still alive? What if the human signal was not a trap but a cry for help? She shook the thought away. Mercy was weakness. "Prepare the ground strike," she ordered. The message sent back on the surface. Ryan adjusted the beacon's settings. "If this works," he said, "someone will hear us." Elira watched closely as he typed a message. "Human survivor. Non-hostile. Medical emergency. Civilian rescued. Request safe extraction." He hesitated, then hit send. The beacon blinked faster, connecting to the nearest relay tower, an old Valari one still hidden underground. The signal shot up into space. "Now we wait," Ryan said quietly. But something strange happened. The beacon's light suddenly turned red. Elira's eyes widened. "That is not good." "What do you mean?" Ryan asked. "That beacon, it talks to everyone." Before Ryan could react, the beacon emitted a sharp tone and shut off. At that same moment, 2 different ships, one human, one Valari, picked up the same signal. Both began locking onto its coordinates. The first to arrive the next morning, the sound of engines filled the air. Ryan and Elira hid in the tunnels, watching from a crack in the wall as a human recon ship landed nearby. 3 soldiers stepped out, scanning the area. Ryan recognized their uniforms and his old unit. He should have felt relief. But instead he felt fear. The soldiers moved carefully toward the outpost, weapons ready. One of them called out, "Captain Holt? You're alive?" Ryan didn't move. Something in their tone was wrong, cold, suspicious. He stayed silent. Elira whispered, "They are your people." "Why are you hiding?" "Because," Ryan said quietly, "I know the look of men sent to kill." The ambush moments later, the soldiers tossed a drone into the tunnel entrance. It hovered silently, scanning with a red beam. Ryan pulled Elira behind a wall. The drone buzzed closer, its sensors flashing. He aimed his rifle, waited, then fired. The bullet hit and the drone exploded in a burst of sparks. The soldiers outside opened fire. Bullets tore through the tunnel walls. Dust and smoke filled the air. Rian returned fire, forcing them back, but he knew they'd return soon with heavier weapons. He turned to Alira. "We have to move deeper." They ran through the dark corridors, guided by the dim lights of old alien machines. Behind them, echoes of battle grew louder, the unseen eyes high above the planet. General Sarah's ship arrived in orbit just as the human commander sent a report. "Target found, engaging." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "They found him before we did." Her AI spoke. "Shall we engage the human ship, General?" She paused, eyes cold. "Not yet. Let them flush him out." Then she added, almost to herself, "And if my daughter is alive, I'll find her." Ending, suspense build-up. On the ground, Ryan and Alira reached the deepest chamber of the old outpost. The air smelled of oil and dust. Alira pressed her hand against a glowing wall. "This place remembers us," she whispered. "It knows I belong." Ryan stared at her in confusion, but before he could speak, the walls themselves began to hum. Old Valari defense systems powered on. A red light washed over them. Rian realized too late. The signal he had sent wasn't just a message. It had triggered a trap left from the last war. He grabbed Alira's hand and shouted, "Run!" But outside, both armies were already closing in, each believing they were walking into victory. And in the middle of it all stood one man and one alien child, caught in the signal trap. The night burned with fire. Explosions shook the ground as dust and flame rose into the dark sky. The ruins of the Valari outpost were alive again, not with life but with war. Captain Ryan Holt dragged Alira through the tunnels as alarms echoed. The trap they had triggered had sent a pulse signal across the planet. Both armies had heard it. Both were coming. Above the ground, human strike ships clashed with Valari hunters, their laser fire cutting through the clouds. The world that had been silent for months now screamed again. The escape below Ryan led Alira down into a maintenance shaft lit by red emergency lights. The air was thick with smoke. He coughed, wiping the dust from his face. Alira's voice trembled. "Why are they fighting again?" "Because that's what they do," Rian said bitterly. "They fight over ghosts and lies." He pushed open a metal door and guided her into a narrow tunnel. Inside, old pipes hissed like snakes. He could feel the tremors of explosions above them. Every few seconds, his comm device buzzed, messages from both sides trying to reach him. But he didn't answer. He didn't trust either one. He stopped near a glowing console. "We'll rest here," he said softly. Alira sat down, shivering. "They will find us," Ryan nodded. "I know." But in his eyes burned a quiet fire, the same fire of a man who refused to die running. The general's arrival far above, General Sarah Ven's warship cut through the clouds like a blade. She stood at the viewport, eyes locked on the burning city below. The human ship's distress calls filled the comm. "We have visual on the target." "He's underground!" "Repeat, target is..." Static swallowed the rest. Sarah clenched her fists. She turned to her captain. "Prepare the ground units. I want him alive. Long enough to tell me where my daughter's body is." Her captain hesitated. "And if the child is alive?" Sarah's cold gaze softened, just for a second. "Then she will come to me. The human won't stop her." The Predator drones deep in the tunnels. Ryan checked the radar. Small red dots appeared on the map. "Drones. They're in the tunnels," he muttered. "They're scanning for us." He opened a crate and found old Valari EMP grenades. Alira watched, wide-eyed, as he armed one. "What is that?" she asked. "Something loud," Ryan said. "Cover your ears." The drone came closer, its red eye glowing through the smoke. Ryan waited until it was just meters away, then threw the grenade. Boom! The tunnel filled with white light and a pulse wave that shut down every machine in range. The drone crashed to the floor, smoking. Alira smiled slightly. "You are good at fighting." Ryan gave a dry laugh. "Too bad fighting's all I've ever done." A message in the dark as they moved deeper. They reached an old Valari chamber filled with strange glowing stones. Ancient tech that hummed softly when Alira entered. She touched one stone, and suddenly, a holographic image flickered in the air. A message. It was Sarah Ven, her mother. Her voice echoed through the room. "To the human who took what is mine, I will find you. You can run to the ends of the stars, but you cannot hide. When I reach you, you will beg for death. Illyra stepped closer to the image, eyes wide. Mother, she whispered, Ryan's stomach twisted. He could see pain and longing in her eyes. She thinks I'm dead, Illyra said softly. She's angry because she loves me. Ryan looked away. Maybe, but love and hate, they look the same in war. The hunter becomes the hunted. The tunnels began to collapse behind them. Enemy bombs hitting the surface. Ryan lifted Illyra and ran through falling debris. At the exit, he found a crashed human dropship half buried in the sand. He checked the cockpit. The pilot was gone, but the engine still worked. He climbed in, starting the system manually. The ship's thrusters coughed and then came to life. Illyra gripped his arm. Where will we go? Anywhere they're not, Ryan said. The ship lifted off, flying low across the desert. Above, Volari fighters swarmed the sky. Ryan turned the engines to silent mode and disappeared into the storm. But he didn't notice the tiny tracker blinking under the hull, placed there by the humans before they fell back. The general's realization, hours later. Sarah Venn stood on the battlefield, her boots sinking into the ash. Her scanner beeped softly. One of her lieutenants approached. General, we found this. He handed her a small fragment, a child's toy Volari made. Sarah froze. She recognized it. It was her daughter's toy, the one Illyra carried everywhere as a baby. Her cold mask cracked. She's alive, she whispered. Her officer looked at her. Then the human didn't kill her? Sarah's eyes turned sharp again. No, he's keeping her. She turned toward the burning horizon. Then the hunt changes. I'm not killing him yet. I'm bringing him in. And then I'll take back what's mine. Ending high suspense. Far across the desert, the small dropship sped through the night. Ryan sat at the controls, eyes locked on the storm ahead. Illyra slept in the back, clutching the small glowing toy he'd found in the wreckage. The same toy her mother now searched for. The tracker blinked faster beneath the ship, its signal climbing to the sky. Above the clouds, Sarah's warship turned sharply, following the signal straight toward them. Ryan didn't know it yet, but the hunt had truly begun. And this time, either side planned to let him live. The desert was silent. Only the sound of the wind whispered through the broken canyons. The small dropship moved slowly, its engines humming like a heartbeat. Captain Ryan Holt sat at the controls, eyes fixed on the endless sand. Illyra slept behind him, wrapped in a blanket. She looked peaceful, as if the war outside didn't exist, but Ryan knew peace never lasted, not in this galaxy. Every few minutes the radar beeped softly, a faint signal growing stronger. Something was following them. He checked the scanner again and again. Still the same. A shadow in the sky, Ryan frowned. They're tracking us, he muttered. He didn't know how, but he could feel it, like a hunter's breath on his neck. The hidden signal later. While Illyra slept, Ryan crawled under the ship's console to check the wiring. His fingers brushed against something, a small metal disc glowing red. A tracker. He cursed under his breath. Those bastards. It wasn't Volari tech. It was human. His own people had done it, tagged him like an animal. Ryan slammed his fist against the floor. For days he had believed he was hunted by aliens. Now he knew the truth. It was his own army that wanted him dead. He looked back at Illyra, sleeping peacefully, unaware that both her mother and his commanders were using her as bait. In orbit above, far above the desert, inside the Volari flagship Ascendant, General Sarah Venn watched the blinking tracker on her screen. The signal was leading them straight to the human's ship. Her second officer spoke carefully. General, our scanners detect human vessels nearby. It appears the humans are also tracking him. Sarah smiled coldly. Good. Let them find him first. Humans always make noise before they die. But deep inside, a storm brewed. She didn't want the human dead, and not yet. Not until she saw her daughter with her own eyes. The message from the sky back in the ship. The radio came alive with static. A familiar voice cut through. Captain Holt, this is Commander Price. We've received your signal. You've gone dark too long. Identify your position. Ryan froze. Commander Price and his former superior. A man who once trusted him. He pressed the comm button slowly. This is Holt. I have a civilian with me. She's injured. Request extraction. There was silence. Then the reply came. Calm. Too calm. Copy that, Captain. Hold your position. We'll bring you home. Ryan's gut twisted. Something in the tone didn't sound right. He switched off the radio and whispered to himself, "No one's coming to save us. They're coming to erase us." Elira's realization when Elira woke, she saw Ryan packing supplies. "We're leaving again?" she asked sleepily. He nodded. "Your mother's close. And so are my people." She looked out the window. "Do you hate them now?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "No. I hate what war makes people do. It makes good men monsters." Elira stared at him, her voice small. "And what are you?" Ryan stopped moving. He didn't know the answer anymore. The attack suddenly, the radar blared. 3 human gunships appeared behind them, moving fast. "Hold on!" Ryan shouted as he pushed the throttle forward. The dropship jumped into the storm, wind and sand tearing across the hull. Bullets ripped through the air, bright streaks flashing past them. Elira screamed as one shot hit their wing, spinning the ship sideways. Ryan fought the controls, gritting his teeth. "They're not supposed to shoot. They think I'm the enemy!" The ship hit the sand hard, sliding across the dunes before stopping near a canyon. Smoke filled the cockpit. Ryan coughed, pulling Elira free. Outside, engines roared. The soldiers were landing, the face of betrayal through the storm. Ryan saw them, human soldiers in gray armor, led by Commander Price himself. "Ryan Holt," Price called out, his voice echoing through the canyon. "By order of the Terran Command, you're under arrest for treason and enemy collaboration." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Treason? I saved a child, not a planet?" Price's tone hardened. "You saved their child. That's enough," he raised his weapon. The soldiers aimed their rifles. Elira stepped in front of Ryan, eyes glowing blue. "Stop, he saved me." The soldiers hesitated, confused by the sight of her, but Price didn't flinch. "Stand down, alien." Ryan's hand tightened on his rifle. "Don't you touch her." For a moment, everything was silent, the kind of silence that comes right before the storm breaks. Then the first shot was fired. The escape, Ryan threw himself forward, firing back. The canyon lit up with flashes of light. Elira ducked behind a rock, covering her ears as explosions thundered around her. He took down 2 soldiers before a grenade hit nearby, throwing him backward. Pain shot through his leg. He dragged himself up, grabbed Elira, and ran toward a cave hidden behind the rocks. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Ryan sealed the entrance with debris and collapsed, gasping for air. Elira pressed her hand against his wound, and her skin began to glow softly. The bleeding slowed. Ryan looked at her, amazed. What are you doing?" "My people heal with light," she whispered. "I can help you," he smiled weakly. "Guess I needed an alien medic." Ending major twist outside the cave, Commander Price's soldiers scanned the area. One of them knelt beside the wrecked dropship and found the small tracker, blinking red. He frowned. "Sir, the signal's not ours. It's Valari tech." Price's eyes went wide. "What did you say?" Before he could finish, the sky split open. Valari ships appeared through the clouds, weapons glowing. General Sarah Ven's voice thundered through every channel. "Human command, stand down. You have something that belongs to me." Ryan, hearing her voice from the cave, looked at Elira. Her eyes filled with tears. "Mother," she whispered. Ryan gripped his weapon tightly. "Looks like everyone finally found us." And as shadows filled the canyon, he realized this was no longer a rescue mission. It was the beginning of the end. The sky burned gold and red as dawn rose over the canyon. The warships of 2 races hovered above the desert, human and Valari, their weapons locked, their captains silent, waiting for the first shot. And in the middle of that dead land, inside a dark cave, Captain Ryan Holt and Elira waited too. Ryan could hear the engines rumbling above like thunder. He was tired, wounded, and out of options. The cave was cold, but sweat covered his face. Elira sat close, her small hand pressed over his injured leg, healing it slowly with her glowing touch. He looked at her and whispered, "You should run when you can. Your mother's army is here." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." "You saved me." Ryan smiled weakly. "I didn't save you to die next to me." Her blue eyes shimmered with tears. "You are not like them. You fight to protect, not to destroy." For a moment, silence filled the cave, the calm before the storm, the motherlands outside. The desert cracked under the landing force of the Valari flagship. The air rippled as a tall figure stepped down. General Sarah Ven, the most feared woman in 2 galaxies. Her armor glowed silver, her eyes burning with a mix of rage and grief. She looked around the canyon, scanning the smoke and dust. "Locate them," she ordered coldly. "No more mistakes." Her soldiers spread out, scanners in hand. But Sarah herself felt something deeper. A pull, like a heartbeat in her chest. A mother's instinct. Her daughter was near. The face-to-face moment Ryan heard the approaching footsteps. He stood slowly, pain in every movement. He picked up his rifle but didn't raise it. There was no point now. A shadow appeared at the cave entrance. Then she stepped inside. General Sarah Venn. The air seemed to freeze. Her eyes glowed like lightning in the dim light. She looked at Ryan, the man she believed had stolen her child. "Human," she said in a low voice that echoed through the cave. "You took my daughter." Ryan stood tall. "No, I saved her." Sarah's expression darkened. "Lies, you think mercy can erase blood?" Before he could answer, Elira ran forward from behind him. "Mother?" she cried. Sarah froze. The word hit her harder than any weapon. She turned slowly, eyes wide in disbelief. "Elira?" she whispered, voice breaking for the first time. The girl ran into her arms. Sarah dropped to her knees, holding her tight. The cold general became a mother again, shaking, crying silently. "My little star," she said softly. "I thought I lost you." Ryan watched quietly, lowering his weapon. It was the first time he had seen Sarah as more than an enemy. She was just a mother who had lost too much. The truth revealed. But peace didn't last. Outside, human soldiers surrounded the area. Commander Price's voice came over the comms. "We have visual on the alien general and the target." "Engage all units," Ryan's radio crackled. He grabbed it. "Price, stand down." "There's a child here?" No answer. The next second, missiles screamed overhead. Explosions rocked the canyon, shaking the cave. Sarah shielded Elira with her own body. Ryan covered them both as the ceiling rumbled. When the dust settled, Sarah glared at Ryan. "Your people are trying to kill us all." "They're not my people anymore," Ryan shouted back. "They want this war to never end." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Ryan took a deep breath. "There's a group, human and Valari both. They control the war. They profit from it. If we stop fighting, they lose power." She stared at him for a long moment. The truth sank in like poison. Then she stood up, holding Elira's hand. "If what you say is true, then you and I share the same enemy." Ryan gave a half smile. "Never thought I'd fight beside a Valari general." Sarah looked him straight in the eye. "Don't mistake this for friendship, human. When this is over, you'll answer for your crimes." Ryan nodded. "Fair enough." The betrayal inside, the battle outside, the soldiers clashed again, humans and Valari tearing each other apart. Ryan and Sarah fought side by side, covering each other as drones rained fire. Ryan shot down 2 mechs rolling behind a rock. Sarah sliced through another with her plasma blade. Elira watched in awe, her mother and her savior fighting together. But then, a single gunshot cracked the air. Sarah gasped and fell to her knees. A sniper round had pierced her shoulder. Ryan spun around, scanning the cliffs. Through his scope, he saw the shooter, a Valari soldier, one of Sarah's own men. Ryan fired first, taking him down. The soldier's mask broke as he fell, revealing a symbol, the mark of the secret cabal Sarah had once served. Ryan rushed to her side. "You've been betrayed." Sarah clenched her teeth. "I see that now." The moment of trust, Ryan tore a piece of cloth and pressed it against her wound. "Stay still." She looked at him, pain and confusion in her eyes. "Why help me now?" He met her gaze. "Because your daughter believes in me, and for once I believe in her." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind outside carried the sound of engines. Reinforcements were coming from both sides. Ryan looked up. "We need to move. They'll be here in minutes." Sarah stood with his help, gripping her blade tightly. "Then we finish this together." Ending. Emotional cliffhanger. As they left the cave, the sun broke through the storm clouds, lighting the desert in gold. Elira walked between them, holding both their hands, the symbol of 2 worlds that could finally unite. But high above, another fleet appeared, and larger, darker, carrying the mark of the Cabal, the true power behind the endless war. Ryan looked up, jaw tight. "They're here." Sarah's voice turned to steel again. Then we end the war and or die trying. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying the sound of distant thunder. The final battle was coming, and this time, humanity would prove what it truly meant to be human. The desert storm had turned black. Lightning tore the sky apart as 3 armadas hovered above the planet. Humans, Valari, and a new shadow fleet wearing no flag. The ships of the Cabal, the secret alliance of war profiteers, had arrived. They weren't here to win the war. They were here to erase everyone who knew the truth. Down below, in the heart of the canyon, Captain Ryan Holt, General Sarah Venn, and her daughter Alira stood side by side. The wind howled, carrying the smell of metal and rain. Ryan looked at the sky and whispered, "This is it." Sarah's hand rested on her plasma blade. "They want to bury us together." Alira's voice trembled. "We can stop them, right?" Ryan knelt in front of her, his eyes soft. "Maybe, but no matter what happens, remember one thing. Peace is worth dying for." She nodded, tears in her glowing eyes. The enemy above. The ground shook as the Cabal's warship descended, its massive engines scorching the sand. Over the radio, a voice echoed, cold, mechanical, without mercy. "To all surviving forces, surrender. The war must continue. Order must remain." Sarah's eyes widened. "They don't want peace. They want control." Ryan loaded his rifle. "Then we give them chaos." He turned to Sarah. "How many power cores does this old Valari base still have?" She looked at the readouts on her wrist. 2. Enough to burn half this canyon if they're overloaded. Ryan smiled faintly. "Perfect. The plan inside the ruins, they worked quickly." Ryan rerouted the reactor's core to the communications tower, while Sarah set a trap. A feedback pulse that would overload any ship that connected to it. If the Cabal tried to take control of the planet's network, the pulse would destroy them. But there was a problem. Someone had to stay behind to trigger it manually. Sarah looked at Ryan. "You know what that means." Ryan didn't answer. He didn't need to. He already knew. The attack. The first wave of drones descended like a storm of fireflies, weapons blazing. Ryan and Sarah fought side by side again, their movements almost in sync. One human, one alien, both fighting for something greater than revenge. Ryan fired at the drones from behind a wrecked ship, while Sarah cut through the air with her glowing blade, deflecting laser fire. Alira hid behind a console, watching her mother and Ryan fight together. Her heart ached with fear. "Please stop fighting," she whispered. "Please." The battle roared louder. One drone slipped through and fired toward her. Ryan saw it, and too late. He dove across the sand, shielding her with his body. The blast hit him full force. Alira screamed. Smoke filled the air. The decision. When the dust cleared, Ryan was on his knees, blood on his armor, breathing heavy. Sarah ran to him, pulling him up. "You fool. You could have let it hit the wall." Ryan smiled weakly. "Walls don't need saving." He looked at the console where the pulse controls waited. "Get her to the ship. I'll finish this." Sarah shook her head. "No, we both know what that will do." "You'll die." Ryan's voice was calm. "I was already dead when this war began." Alira grabbed his hand, crying. "Don't go." He touched her cheek gently. "You gave me something I'd forgotten, kid. A reason to be human again." The final moment Sarah hesitated, torn between her duty as a general and her heart as a mother. But she saw the truth in Ryan's eyes. He wasn't running. He was staying so her daughter could live. She nodded slowly, tears burning her eyes. "Your name will not be forgotten, Captain." Ryan gave a faint grin. "Just make sure peace isn't either." Sarah lifted Alira into her arms and ran toward the escape ship. The engines roared to life as she looked back one last time. Ryan stood alone at the reactor core, surrounded by smoke and lightning. He pressed the activation code. The reactor began to hum, louder, brighter, like a rising star. The Cabal ships locked onto his signal, preparing to fire. Ryan whispered to himself, "Let's end this." He slammed his palm onto the final trigger. The world went white. The aftermath. The explosion ripped through the sky like a sun being born. The Cabal fleet disintegrated in seconds, their control networks collapsing across the galaxy. The storm swallowed the canyon whole. Hours later, silence. From the sky, a small Valari shuttle descended. Sarah and Alira stepped out, their faces pale but alive. The desert was calm now. No smoke, no war, just wind. Elira looked toward the blast site. He's gone, isn't he? Sarah placed a hand on her shoulder. He became what no soldier could ever be, hope. They stood together watching the sunrise. The sky turned from red to gold. Years later, peace finally came. Humans and Valari rebuilt together. The old hatreds faded into memory, and in the heart of the new capital stood a statue, a man holding a small child in his arms, shielding her from the storm. The plaque beneath read, Captain Rian Holt, the human who chose mercy over war. He shielded the enemy's daughter, and saved the galaxy instead. Elira, now grown, stood before the statue with a quiet smile. She touched the name carved in stone and whispered, You kept your promise. Above her the stars shone brighter than ever, no longer a battlefield, but a home.